Hearty welcome to the first lecture of the Plural Perspectives video lecture series offered by the Postgraduate Department of English, Pioneer College, Pioneer. This lecture is based on the poem An Introduction written by Kamala, which is included as the first lesson of the textbook Plural Perspectives, Readings on Gender, prescribed for the second semester UG English Common Course students of Kannur University as course 2A04 ENG. I suggest you to have a copy of the poem with you and read it once before we begin the session. Before going deeper into the poem, let us get acquainted with the renowned poet Kamala, one of the most significant poets of Indian English literature. She is popularly known as Madhavi Kutty, and she is a bilingual poet who writes in her native Malayalam and English with equal ease and mastery. She was born in Punirkulam, Southern Malabar on March 31st, 1934 as the daughter of the famous Malayali poet Nalapattu Balamani Amma and V.M. Nair, the managing editor of Madhrubhumi. She is widely acclaimed for her notable works, which you must have heard of, like Summer in Calcutta, The Descendants, The Old Playhouse, and the much discussed autobiography, My Story, and the memoir, Balyakala Smaranagal. She has a splendid collection of short and crisp short stories like Thanuppu, for which she was awarded the Kerala Sahitya Academy Award in 1969. In 1999, she controversially converted to Islam, renaming herself Kamala Suraya. And to talk about her poetry, Kamala's poetry is characterized by frankness, clarity, and openness. And the poem that we are discussing today was published in her collection Summer in Calcutta in 1965. She wrote openly and frankly about female sexual desire and the experiences of being an Indian woman. She gave a straightforward expression to feminine sensibility in all its varied manifestations. Her poetry is mostly confessional and autobiographical. She expresses her own frustrations and failures in a male-dominated world and tells us how she tried to maintain her individuality and feminine identity in such a world. An analysis of this poem will help us to understand her poetic art and the main themes of poetry. An Introduction is one of her finest poems, which is confessional and autobiographical in mode. The assertion of feminine identity in a male-dominated world is the central theme of this poem. It throws light on the plight of women in a patriarchal society. Before analyzing the poem in detail, let us look at the significance of the title. Just as the title suggests, the poem gives us an introduction about the poet Kamala. It moves through her childhood, her heritage, her adolescent period, unhappy marital life, her rebellion against the traditional conventions, and finally, the assertion of her individuality. The poem begins like this. I don't know politics, but I know the names of those in power and can repeat them like days of weeks or names of months beginning with Nehru. The poem begins by stating that she doesn't know politics, but she knows the names of those in power by heart and can repeat them like days of weeks or names of months. She begins with Nehru's name. This shows that power is often held in the hands of a few, especially the elite male. This contrasts significantly with the lack of power she felt all throughout her life. In the next lines, she introduces herself as an Indian. Let's see. I am Indian, very brown, born in Malabar. I speak 3 languages, write in 2, dream in 1. She tells us about her Indianness and is proud to assert her Indian identity. She is very brown in color and born in Malabar. She can speak 3 languages, write in 2, and dream in 1. The three languages mentioned can be Malayalam, English, Hindi or Bangla. Two languages can be English and Malayalam. Here, the poet might be attempting to show that she is no lesser than man. She is also capable of learning different languages as well as writing different languages. It is the lack of opportunities that is pushing women towards the margin and not the lack of talent. The intrusion of society into her life is visible when she says that they never allowed her to write in the language she chose. Don't write in English, they said, as English is not her mother tongue. She boldly resented this encroachment into her freedom of expression and her identity and continued to write in English. She said the language in which she speaks becomes her own. Its distortions, its cureness, its strangeness, everything becomes her own. She asked the critics to leave her alone and let her be. The critics include her friends, visiting cousins, and all others who were intruding into her privacy. Kamala has been craving for freedom from all kinds of bondage, and here she is striving for the freedom to choose the language she likes. Now, let us look at the next lines. It is half English, half Indian, funny perhaps, but it is honest. It is as human as I am human, don't you see? It voices my joys, my longings, my hopes, and it is useful to me as cawing is to crows or roaring to the lions. It is human speech, the speech of the mind that is here and not there, a mind that sees and hears and is aware. Not the deaf, blind speech of trees in storm, or of monsoon clouds, or of rain, or the incoherent mutterings of the blazing funeral pyre. She admits that the language she uses may not be perfect. It can be half English, half Indian, funny perhaps, but it is honest. She attributes human character to her language and says that it is as human as she is human, and it can be imperfect as how every human being can be imperfect. It voices her joys, her longings and hopes. Her language is useful to her as cawing is to the crows or roaring to the lions. It is very integral to her existence. It is human speech, the speech of human mind that sees, hears and is aware. She goes on to clarify that it is not like the dead, blind speech of the trees in storm, or of monsoon clouds, or of rain, or the incoherent mutterings of the blazing pyre. Here, she tells us about the various sounds that you hear in nature. The sound made by the rustling of the leaves, the sound made by the trees in storm, the sound made by the monsoon clouds and the rain, the cracking sound made by the fire when it burns. All these sounds may not be intelligible to all of us, but she says her sound or language is not as incoherent or unintelligible as these sounds. Her language can be understood as it possesses a coherence of its own. In the next lines, she tells us about the adolescent period in which she attained puberty and how she was married off at a very young age. I was child, and later they told me I grew, for I became tall, my limbs swelled, and 1 or 2 places sprouted hair. When I asked for love, not knowing what else to ask, for he drew a youth of 16 into the bedroom and closed the door. He did not beat me, but my sad woman body felt so beaten. The weight of my breasts and womb crushed me. I shrank pitifully. There were remarkable physical changes in her body. She grew tall, her limbs swelled, and 1 or 2 places sprouted hair. She was married off at the age of 16 to Madhav Das a bank officer. Love, for which she earnestly yearned in her adolescence, was denied to her. The child in her was not prepared to take the role of a wife. She felt humiliated in her womanly body and felt beaten even though he did not beat her. The weight of her breasts and womb, which were markers of her femininity, crushed her. She shrank pitifully and started to detest her body as it has brought her so much of pain. The injustice done to the young girls in the form of child marriage is shown here. Then she tried to reject the traditional feminine roles. Let's see. Then I wore a shirt, my brother's trousers, cut my hair short, and ignored my womanliness. Dress in saris, be girl, be wife, they said. Be embroider, be cook, be a quarreler with servants, fit in, oh, belong, cried the categorizers. Don't sit on walls or peep in through our lace-draped windows. Be army, or be Kamala, or better, still be Madhavikutty. It is time to choose a name, a role. Don't play pretending games. Don't play at schizophrenia, or be a nympho. Don't cry embarrassingly loud when jilted in love. She started to wear men's clothes, men's shirts, her brother's trousers, and cut her hair short. She cried to ignore her womanliness. The categorizers of the society asked her to fit in, to dress in saris, be a girl, be wife. They began to advise her to adopt the various feminine roles, be embroider, be cook, be a quarreler with servants. Here we can see a clear demarcation of certain roles and duties as feminine and certain others as masculine. They criticized her and asked her to conform to the various womanly roles. They wanted her to be a meek, quiet and contained woman and not a rebellious one. They asked her not to sit on walls and peep in through the lace-draped windows, as these were exclusively reserved for the men. They told her to be army, be Kamala or be Madhavikutty, and to stop playing pretending games. The society watches all her activities and abuses her and scolds her. They accuse her of being a schizophrenic and nympho. A schizophrenic is a person who has a mental illness, and a nympho is a woman with uncontrollable sexual desire. They confuse her want of love and attention for insatiable sexual craving. Then she realizes that her experiences were the experiences of every woman. Just like a man craves for love, woman too craves for love. She says, I met a man, loved him. Call him not by any name. He is every man who wants a woman, just as I am every woman who seeks love. She attributes to him not a proper noun, but a common noun, every man, to reflect his universality. He defined himself by the I, the supreme male ego. The sexual longing is portrayed through lines: in him, the hungry haste of rivers; in me, the ocean's tireless waiting. Who are you? I ask each and every one. The answer is, it is I. Anywhere and everywhere, I see the one who calls himself I. In this world, he is tightly packed like the sword in its sheath. It is I who drink lonely drinks at 12, midnight, in hotels of strange towns. It is I who laugh. It is I who make love and then feel shame. It is I who lie dying with a rattle in my throat. I am sinner, I am saint, I am the beloved and the betrayed. I have no joys that are not yours, no aches which are not yours. I too call myself I. Towards the end of the poem, she draws our attention to one of the crucial points discussed in the poem. The male ego is represented through these lines. Everywhere I see the one who calls himself I. This male ego gives him the power to do anything he wants. He is tightly protected like a sword in its sheath. It portrays the power politics of the patriarchal society. He is free to roam about the world at any time of the day. He can visit hotels or bars and drink lonely drinks even at midnight. He can laugh, make love and act according to his whims and fancies. Kamala strikes the ending note with a universal truth that the end is the same for everyone. Death is a leveler. She says, "It is I who lie dying with a rattle in my throat. Now the I takes a shift. I becomes the female persona." She says, "Like men, I am sinner, I am saint, I am the beloved and the betrayed." Here, she attributes the title of I to herself. She emancipates herself to the level of I. She says, "I too call myself I," with self-assertion. So that's all about an analysis of the poem. Now about the patterns and rhymes in the poem. An introduction does not contain a specific pattern of rhyme or rhythm. The lines vary in length and syllable number. Kamala uses certain poetic techniques such as enjambment, the continuation of a sentence without a pause beyond the end of a line. For example, in these lines, there is no pause. You see, "When I asked for love, not knowing what else to ask, for he drew a youth of 16 into the bedroom and closed the door." And she also uses repetition in this poem. For example, in the lines, "Be wife," they said, "be embroider, be cook, be a quarreler with servants," you can see the words being repeated. Now, let us discuss some of the comprehension questions. Question number 1. What does the phrase "very brown" indicate? Answer. The phrase "very brown" indicates her Indianness and the Indian skin complexion. Question number 2. Which is the narrator's region of birth? Answer. Malabar, which is in the southern part of India, is the narrator's region of birth. Question number 3. Why do they ask the narrator not to write in English? Answer. They ask the narrator not to write in English because English is not her mother tongue. Question number 4. Whom does they in the poem represent? Answer. The word "they" refers to the critics, which include her friends and visiting cousins. Question number 5. How did the narrator try to ignore her womanliness? Answer. The narrator tried to ignore her womanliness by cutting her hair short and wearing men's clothes. Question number 6. What are the specific chores assigned as the duty of women in the poem? The specific chores assigned as the duty of women in the poem are that of an embroider, cook, and a quarreler with servants. Question number 7. Who are the categorizers mentioned in the poem? Answer. The categorizers mentioned in the poem are the ones who try to conform her to traditional feminine roles and who abuse her for not fitting in. Question number 8. What is wrong with sitting on the walls and peeping through laced draped windows? Answer. Sitting on the walls and peeping through laced draped windows are exclusively meant for the boys according to the categorizers. Question number 9. How, according to the categorizers, should the narrator behave when jilted in love? Answer. When jilted in love, she should not cry loud. Question number 10. What is the significance of the title? An introduction. Answer. The title gives us an idea about the poem's content. It gives us an introduction about the poet's life and the identity crisis she faces. Question number 11. What are the pretending games forbidden by the categorizers? Answer. The categorizers forbid her from behaving like a boy, a schizophrenic, or a nympho. Question number 12. Give an example of the transferred epithet used in the poem. Answer. Blind speech is an example of transferred epithet. A transferred epithet is a figure of speech in which a modifier or epithet is transferred from the noun it is meant to describe to another noun in the sentence. So, that's all for today's class. See you again. Thank you and have a nice day.